This is Gemara in Kiddushin Daf Chof Beis, all the learning for this month. The month of El has been generously sponsored as a credible Schos Aliyas Neshama for Esther Rezel Basar Ameir B'Siyata Dishmaya. The learning of the entire Chabura should bring Esther Rezel Basar Ameir an incredible Aliyas Neshama higher and higher in Gan Eden Shel Maila. We pick it up on Chaval from Beis. We're about 14 lines from the bottom. The first one, the line is Es Adoinov. Ibayilahu asks the Gemara, Kayin Mahu b'Yafas Tayar. What is the halacha of a Kayin to a Yafas Tayar? Do the halachas of a Yafas Tayar permitting one in battle to marry a non-Jewish woman apply to a Kayin as well? And of course, as you'll see in a moment, this is brought in over here as it's a direct segue, direct first cousin of their previous Gemara, in which the same Stadim apply. Apologize, that was a little bit of a kamikaze bug flying at me. Okay, continues the Gemara. What are the Stadim? Do we say Chedishu that the whole that the Vivas Torah is a Chedesh Leishna Kayin Leishna Yisrael Oyel Delma Shiny Koyhanim Oyel V'Riba Mrs. Yiseiris? What is the halacha of a Kayin to a Yifas Tayar? Do we say that the whole thing is a chiddush and therefore it doesn't make a difference who you are, Yisrael, Kayin, it's going to be mutter, or no? Maybe Kayanim are on a higher plateau. Explains the Gemara, Rav Amar Mutter, Shmuel Amar Aser. So explains the Gemara, what is this machlekes Rav and Shmuel? Bibi Arishaina, at the first act of intercourse with this Yifas Tayar Kulam Yilo B'Gid Shari. Says Gemara, that of course is mutter. Why? Because the whole invention, the whole yisoid of Yifas Tayar is what? The Torah never spoke against the Yitzhahara, meaning it's impossible for this person in battle to hold himself back, so we permit it. But that's only the initial act of being together. Ki pligi, the machlekes Rav and Shmuel, says the Gemara is B'Bia Shniya. Rav Amar Mutter, Shmuel Amar Aser. Why? Rav Amar Mutter, all Vishtarya history. Once it's mutter, it's mutter. Once his kain is together with his Yifas Tayar, they'll be able to continue living together. Shmuel Amar Aser, the Havelegi Ayres. Because at that point, at the point that this woman is becoming married to Kain, she's essentially becoming a Giyaris, becoming a convert. And the halacha is Giyaris l'Kayin lo Chazia. Lashon number one, explaining the machlekes Rav and Shmuel, in which that they are arguing about the Bia Shniya. Ikadi Amri, says the Gemara, a second Lashon, explains the Gemara, everyone agrees that the second bia, is aser. Why? Because at that point, she's a geras. Ki pligi, what is the machlekes to be a rishaina? Rav Amar Mutter, why? The libertarian alikeneged Yitzhahara. Ushmuel Amar Aser, why? Says Shmuel, anytime we're going to allow them to start living better, they're not going to be able to eventually actually stay married, which means to bring her into the house. Says Shmuel, we do not consider it, and therefore the beginning halachais of Yifas Tayar will not apply. That is the two ways of learning the machlekes Rav and Shmuel, whether it's B'Bia Rishaina or B'Bia Shniya. Tanu Rabbanon, as it relates to a Yifas Tayar, whether a Kohen is permitted to marry her in battle or not. Continues the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanon V'Risa B'Shivya. Now we're going to darshan the pasuk of Yifas Tayar, taking apart piece by piece. It says, you see her in battle, B'Shah Shivya. Has to be at a time of battle. Eishes Yifas Tayar. From the word Eishes, we learn Afilu Eishes, even if she is married. Yifas Tayar, she is beautiful, says the Gemara. What does that mean? She's beautiful, you can't withstand. That's in the Torah permitted it. Why? It's better to permit something than what this means is, if there's meat that's about to spoil but the person needs to eat it, so even though it's putrid, we prefer to let a person shecht it and eat it in a state of shchuta, in which it's essentially permitted, than to allow the person to eat it while it is a nevela. So similarly by us, if the person is not going to be able to hold back, we prefer, the Torah prefers, we don't prefer. The Torah prefers to permit it and allow them to get married beheter. Continues the Gemara, v'chashakta. From there we learn out, even if she's not beautiful, but he desires her. You can only take one if I not two. You take her in marriage. You can't take two women. One for you, one for your father, one for you, for your son. Then it says you bring her into your house. You can't be together with her in the battle. Rather, you have to bring her back home. And that's the drasha, is all the different dinim that we learn out from the psukim of Yefas Tayr. Now continues the Gemara after that slight segue, we'll call it, that slight interruption as we deal with Yefas Tayr. Now we're going to come back around. Tana Rabbanan, let's discuss the halachas, back to the halachas of Nirtzeh. Im Amar Yoimar. The psukim say by a Nirtzeh that if the Eved says and says, double lashon. Explains the Gemara, what's the double lashon? Teaching us, Ache Yoimar v'yishna. The Eved has to say 2 times that he wants to stay with his master. Amar, and the Gemara says, when are these 2 times that the Eved says? Amar b'tchila sheish v'chav beizam and aleph, 6 lines down. Amar b'tchila sheish l'amar b'sayv sheish, said at the beginning of the 6 years, and not at the end. Einoi nirtza. He doesn't get the din of a nirtza. Again, a nirtza being is we'll spend a moment, his ear being pierced. Shenamar, why? Lo yitzei chavshi. Because the pasuk says he's not going to go free. Ad sheyamar b'shas yitzi has to be said at the moment that the evidence is potentially going free. Amar b'sayv sheish l'amar b'tchila sheish. Said at the end of 6 years, but did not say it at the beginning. Eino nirtza. Why? Shenamar im amar yoimar o evet. Says that the Eved has to say it twice. Achi yoimar kshu Eved. He has to say it twice while he is an Eved. Amar mar. So those are the times when the Eved has to say that he doesn't want to leave, rather he wants to stay to his master. So again, a double lashon, saying it 2 times during Avdos. Amar mar. Amar b'tchil sheish amar b'sayv sheish eino nirtza. Why? Shenemar, because the pasuk says lo yitzei chavshi. Pasuk says he doesn't want to go free. My Arya says, why are you learning it out from that pasuk? Why are you learning out from the pasuk of lo yitzei chavshi? Typically, to be inon. Why don't we learn it out from the fact that he needs to be able to say that he loves his master, his wife, and his children? And at the beginning of the 6 years, he doesn't have a master, wife, and children. So why are you telling me that we need a different drasha to teach us why he can't, why he has to say this statement at the end of the 6 years? Make it simply, because if it's at the beginning of the 6 years, the statement is not true. He can't say that he loves his master. Visu, and furthermore, asked the Gemara, Amar b'sayv sheish l'amar b'tchil sheish eino nirtza. If said at the end and at the beginning, he's not nirtza shnemer ha'evet. Asked the Gemara to say sheish lav evedu. I don't understand. He's still considered an evet at the last moment before he goes free. So why is that a reason why it would not work? So Amar Rava explains, Rava, you know what it means. B'tchila pruta achrayna, b'sayv pruta achrayna. B'tchila and b'sayv sheish means, it says Rava, means at the end of his working, at the beginning of his freedom, those last few moments, those last few days, that is when this evet has to make the statement that he wants to stay with his master. We continue the 2 dots, smack in the middle of Chafezim and Aleph. Chafezim and Aleph. I apologize for the lack of video. We're having minor issues over here. Tanu Rabbanan, lo yishau banim. If he has a wife and children, Rabba Eini Shabbanim, more dinim of the nirtzeh. What's the halacha of the Eved has a wife and kids, but the master does not? Halacha is no nirtzeh. He can't have his ear pierced. Why? Shenemar, the pasuk says, he has to love his master and the whole household. Which means the master has to have a household, the master has to have a wife and kids. The master has a wife and kids, and he does not. As well, in nirtzeh. Why? He has to have a wife and kids that he, and therefore he'll only be able to become a nirtzeh if he has a wife and kids. Let's say he wants to sleep, but the master doesn't like him. Has to be equal to love. The master loves him and he doesn't love his job. I guess he just asked to stay, he has no choice. Or he feels that way. As Rabbi, you have to love him. Let's say he's sick, but the master is not sick. We're seeing here how far the equality between Eved and master has to go. Shenemar, Kitayv lo yimach. Rabbi if the master is saying he has night on the earth, shenemar imach. Again, the master and the Eved have to be equal, and therefore, if one of them is sick and the other is not, there's no din of nirtza. Boi Rav Bibi bar Abaya, what is the halach of shneim uchaylim? What if they're both sick? Not imach v'inon v'ika. There has to be imach, and they're equal. They're both sick. Al dilma ki toiv lo imach v'inon. They have to be equal in the toiv. B'haleka, and they're not because they're both sick. Responds the Gemara Teiku. We don't have a teretz to this final kasha. Tanu Rabbanon, continuing the discussion of the nirtza kitayv lo imach, says the Bryce. Yes, we go with you a Bryce that we've quoted about 15 lines to the bottom of Chavei and Half. Imach b'maychel, imach b'mishneh. Yes, we equal in food and drink. Shal te'ata eicha bas nikiya. You, the master, cannot eat clean bread. V'acha bas kibur. You have old age, beautiful wine. Chadash, new wine. You sleep on a soft bed. You sleep on straw. Purchasing an Eved Ivri is akin to getting a master itself, as the master, the Eved, is treated as good as the master. Taner Rabban continues the Brayso. He and his children. Amrav Shemin, Emu Nimkar, Banav V'naisa Nimkar. What does it mean that he leaves with his children? What exactly does that mean? What? Just because he sold into slavery, his kids are as well. Mikan, from here we learn out, Sharabai Chayev Imzainais Benoi. Banav. From here we learn out that the master is obligated to feed the children. Not that the children actually go into Avdos, but rather that the master is obligated to support them. Similarly, we say in Baal Isha, that the wife goes with him. What does that mean? Is his wife sold into servitude? What does that mean? So not only is the master obligated to support the kids, but the master is obligated to support the wife as well. And now the Gemara, in the classical sense, wonders, why do we need two different psukim, one to prove that the master has to support the kids, and one to prove that the master has to support the wife? Says the Gemara Sricha, we need both psukim. We're 5 lines from the bottom of Chav Beis and Aleph. I apologize. That as well has unfortunately stopped working. Tanur Sricha, excuse me. Diash minabana misham deloy b'nei mevad umeichal ninu. Kids do not have the capacity to work and make enough money to support themselves. Maybe that's the reason why the master has to support them. But the wife, she has the ability, let her just work, and with the money she makes, support herself. So Amos, I would think maybe Tevet V'Teichel. Maybe she has to do that. If we just listen to the wife to lav darka la dura, it's not normal for the wife to go around begging. Avobanav the darkinu la dura, emalai. But to the kids that it's their derech to beg, emalai, then maybe we would think that what? They have to go around and beg, they don't get supported by the master. Sricha, therefore we need both psukim. And that's the two different psukim teaching us that the master doesn't only support the Eved, but also his wife and the children. Tanur Abanan, as we turn over to Chav Beis Amid Beis. Continuing the dinim of Eved Ivri now, of a nirtza. And now we're going to go more particularly into the entire process of the ritziyah, as we learned in yesterday's daf, the utensil, the awl that is used to bore the hole in the Eved's ear. Now we go a bit deeper into the actual process. Says the Gemara on the top of Chav Beis Amid Beis, Ilu Namar Oznai Badeles. If it would have said his ear in the door, you know what I would have thought? Yidkar Kineged Oznai Badeles. The hole should be made in the door. Deles in Oznai, I would think the hole's only in the door. It says the Gemara, really? You would have such a havamina? You would think it doesn't make the hole in the door. But the pasuk says, but the pasuk says they got to make a hole in his ear. Ella, no, I would have thought make a hole in his ear outside, and then they make a hole in the door. Badeles, opposite the ear. Talmud loymar. So for that we learn out be'oznai ubadeles. Ha-ketzad. How do you have one hole from the ear through the door? Ha-ketzad. Doiker v'hoylech ha'shemagia eitzel deles. You make a hole straight through the ear, straight through the door, all the way through the ear, into the door. Deles shame'ani bein akura, bein she'ina akura. Now the fact that it says deles, from there we learn out whether the door is attached or not. Hamlim or mezuzah that has to be on the doorpost. Ma mezuzah me'umad that has to be standing the doorpost. Aftel is not me'umad that the door has to be standing. So we're learning that you have to make a hole through the Eved's ear straight into the doorpost on a vertical door. On a vertical doorpost. So that's how you make the nirtza. You make this hole with the awl straight through his ear into the door. Now says the Gemara, two drashes. As follows, kimin chaymer, beautifully. Why is the ear different than all the limbs of the body? Two lines on the white lines. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, says Hashem, Oizin sheshamea koili al Har Sinai, the ear that heard my voice in Har Sinai, v'shasha amarti, when I said Kili b'nei Yisrael avadim, that you, to me, Klal Yisrael, you are servants, la'avadim, you should never be servants to someone else. V'holach zeh, and this person in that ear went, v'kona adin la'aso, and he acquired himself as a master. Yiratzeh, acquired a master to himself, meaning he became an Eved. Yiratzeh, should have his ear bored. Rav Shimon, Rav Yehuda, Yadarish, as a maker, as a kimin chaymer, a different Josh on the second white line. Man, Ishanadelos umizos, and we call Kelim Shababayis. How is the door different? Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, Deles, the door, umizos, and the doorpost. They were witnesses in Egypt when I jumped over, when I skipped over the doorpost. Is on the door, and the two doorposts of the Yidden. And I said, Kili b'nei Yisrael. At that moment, HaKadosh Baruch Hu coined us avadim to himself, lo avadei lavadim. And yet, excuse me, and I took them out from servitude. And yet, have his ear pierced in front of them. And that is the reason why the ear is pierced on the door, as let the doorpost and the door be the edim for what this guy wants to do. And we continue with the Mishnah on Chav Beis and Beis, 6 lines into the very wide lines. We've been discussing Eved Ivri for a while, and now the Mishnah continues, going into Eved Kenani. Eved Kenani, a non-Jewish Eved, is nikna 3 ways: Kesef, Shtar, Chazaka, money, document, Chazaka, taking ownership of him, as we will see. The koine is atzmai, and the Eved Kenani acquires himself back because of the Echerim, someone else can redeem him. Ubishtar the atzmai, or he could accept a shtar onto himself. Divrei Rabbi Meir. Chachamim ayimrim, because of the atzmai, he could accept the money by himself, but ubishtar the Echerim, he could accept. Someone else could accept the shtar for him. Ubelvad, when it says the money by himself, kasef mishal acherim, the money has to originate from somewhere else, and we will talk about that in subsequent shiurim exactly what that means. Says the Gemara Minallah, and where do we know this din that Eved Kenani is nikta because of shtar v'chazaka t'chsev? Says the Torah. V'snachalta ma'asalim b'nechem acharechem l'reshes achuzah. From here we learn out the classical hekish the Torah puts together. Akish and Akasav l'stei achuzah. Acquiring an Eved Kenani is put next door to stei achuzah, acquiring a field. Ma stei achuzah is nikta bekesef with cash, ubishtar v'chazaka with a document, or with taking property of possession of it. Af Eved Kenani nikta bekesef v'shtar v'chazaka. Asks the Gemara 1 second. He mas stei achuzah chazaris l'baylim b'yovel av Eved Kenani chazaris l'baylim b'yovel. Should return back to the owner as a yovel. Then no, the Eved is yours forever. Tana. So that's the source he could acquire the Eved. Tana, we learned in the Mishnah. Af bechalipin. There's a brayso, that says could acquire an Eved Kenani even with chalipin. But Tana Didan explains the Gemara Milsa the lesson of Talti Katani. Why didn't our Tana list chalipin, which is an exchange, like you take a yarmulke and you pick it up? Our Tana didn't list it because things which are not applicable by metaltalin, movable items, katani, that is what our Mishnah listed. But also these metaltalin like katani items, which you could also acquire metaltalin, are not listed. Amar Shmuel continues. That's din number 1 on our Mishnah is chalipin. Shmuel says an Eved Kenani is nicknamed b'meshicha. You could pull the Eved. How? Ketzad. Takva, you pull him u'ba'atzlai, he comes to you. Kana, you acquire this Eved Kenani. Kara, if you call the Eved u'ba'atzlai, then loy kanai. So let's take this piece by piece. I understand why our Mishnah did not list Mishicha pulling the Eved, because it only listed items that do not exist by metaltalin. And you could pull movable items and acquire them. Katani. Elatana b'Rab, on that second brayso that listed Chalip and Nisna Mishicha, why does not list Mishicha? Explains the Gemara. Kikatani milsa di'ise bein mimekarkoi bein mimetaltali. It listed items that apply by both. Meshicha, Demetaltali, Isa, B'Markai, Lessa, you can't do Meshicha, you can't pull land. Therefore, that Braisa, Loikatani, did not list it. So now we did the math, and now we know our Mishnah, the Braisa, and this third Braisa, why each one listed the cases that they did. And now it continues the Gemara describing how Meshicha worked. Keitzad, how did you do Meshicha? We said, Takfa, you pull the Eved Ubatz when he comes to you, Kanai. Bakara, if you call the Eved Ubatz when he comes to you, then Loikatani, you're not Kaina. Says the Gemara, Vikara, Loi, if you call the Eved, you're not Kaina. Vatani learns in a Braisa, Keitzad b'Mesira. How do you give over? Achzai, so about an animal. Achzai b'tilfa v'sayra, ba'ikif shalah, you pull and hold any part of the animal. B'shliv shalah, the package on the permbiyah shavapiyah, the bin its mouth, the b'zug shavasavara, the bell. Kana keitzad b'meshicha. That's how you do mesira. You hand over any part of the animal and you're kainet. How do you do meshicha? Kara la v'hiba. You call the animal and it comes. Or shekishav makal v'ratzilafanav, or you hit the animal with a stick and it causes it to run. Kiv sha'aka yad v'regel kana. Once the animal picks up a arm and a leg, you're kainet. Rav Asiya v'amri lo Rav Acha Omar, not just picks up a leg and an arm, but rather ashatal l'fanav malei kumasi, has to walk the full body length in front of you. So what do we see? We see that when it comes to an animal, you can be kind of the animal by pulling it, by calling it, by causing it to move. So why by over here, by Evet Kenani, are we saying you cannot be kind of Evet Kenani by making him move? Says the Gemara, fundamental difference between an animal and a slave, even a non-Jewish one. When you call prod an animal, it goes because of you. Therefore, you're kind of Evet has his own das. Therefore, even though you call it, and it responds by moving, it's not considered that you made it move, as it has its own das to make that decision. Amar Rav Ashi, and explains Rav Ashi based on what we just said. An Eved Katan is kebehema dami. An Eved Katan will have the status like a behema. Why? Because an Eved Katan has no das. Tanu, we're going to stop over here and pick it up with Chazaka in the next year. B'siyata Dishmaya.